Good morning. This is the Retired Hillbilly podcast. I am your host, Lee Muncy. Let's start off with a disclaimer. The views expressed on this podcast are only the views of the presenter, mine and only mine. They are not approved, affiliated, or condoned by any other entity. Views are as is. Any dissenting views or of facts may be communicated and possibly discussed in any future podcast. So the format, as always, is introduction, topics for the podcast, background information, current thoughts, my thoughts, maybe a review, previous topic discussions if warranted, and then the closing, how to contact, a reminder where to find previous offerings, and contact information. Please excuse any of the wind on this beautiful spring morning in the Ohio Valley. It is breezy, blue skies, and I live in a neighborhood where it looks like someone is breaking up concrete, mowing the lawn. Normal sounds for a spring day. I really like participating in nature, God's handiwork, His planning, His gifts He's given us over the years is shown in nature's beauty. And I do appreciate it, even though it may cause me basal cell carcinomas and red, pale, scaly skin. It's still a wonder to behold, is it not? It's better than therapy, I think, but that's just my opinion. Let's talk about current events. So, the attacks on the Islamic People's Republic of Iran continue a bit at a much slower pace than how it started. I think that President Trump is in the process of giving them enough rope to hang themselves. Years ago, I read The Art of the Deal, and negotiation, or at least the appearance of negotiation, will show you people a side that happens before the original plan comes into effect. We've had to start taking out some of the Chinese allies, Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, and others, before the Chinese, get in a position where we would not be able to defend at all. My personal opinion that we'll probably be going after Mexico and some of the other countries that have been acting mean toward the United States and cozying up to China. My opinion, based upon what I see happening currently, like I said, is that we'll probably be more involved in the narco fights against the cartels in Mexico and other places. We will probably try to cozy up back up with North Korea a little bit again, and we'll give the appearance of trying to negotiate with China. They have a 100-year plan to be the dominant country on earth, economically, militarily, and socially. They've been working doggedly toward that plan, and it's up to us, the United States, to stop them. Religion. So as I retired a little over a year ago in 2025, there were some things I needed to take care of. First was my health. I need to lose weight, and I've done that and keep on trying to do that. Take care of a hiatal or a umbilical hernia, which over the years has grew to 15 centimeters, which is quite large, and it basically came from as a parting gift from the U.S. Army. All those sit-ups and push-ups made a tear in that area. Of course, it went sideways, and I had a massive hematoma. I would joke with my friends and family that I had lost the toss with Satan on who was going to carry the love child. It only receded over the past 3 months. The bruising is still there, Don't worry, I won't show you the bruising. But it was nice purple, green, orange, yellow, blue, all kinds of different colors, even tinges of blue, I think. And it's just now fading. Got on the treadmill, tried to get back to my 5 miles a day. At the end of a session about a month ago, I heard a loud pop on my right foot with immediate pain. It was a stress fracture. So I've been trying to get over that. I've been doing other exercises now, trying to slowly build up to it. I'm also trying to get in shape for a trip to Philadelphia on July 4th. I'm hoping to be in Philadelphia at Independence Hall when they read the Declaration of Independence. As a member of the Sons of the American Revolution, they have plenty of activities planned for a parade, a tour of Independence Hall, tour of the Museum of the American Revolution, and all kinds of fun things. History. Let's talk about history for a minute. One of the things that have, background. The Middle East is a mess today because of decisions made many years ago by different powers that be. Let me get my glasses, see if I can get to the right one. Technology is great when it works. Let's see if it works now. World War I started as a war of empires. The Russian Empire, the Greater German Empire, the French Empire, the English Empire. But a little known empire that had the most results, especially toward the Middle East, was the Ottoman Empire, the Turks. They had controlled the Middle East for close to 1,000 years. They had beat the Crusaders and pushed them out of the Middle East. Solomon was their only good general, but he was very effective. With the end of World War I and the emergence of the United States and Japan as dominant world players, countries that had empires had started to fracture. The first signs of the British Empire being dissolved, the Russian Empire going to communism, or the Marxists with Lenin. The Spanish Empire had been broken up and failing and was finally defeated by the United States even before World War I. But that era was the beginning of the end of empires. So, with the defeat of the Ottoman Empire and the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire in 1922, the victors, in particular Great Britain and France, started partitioning the Arab world. There was a secret agreement between them called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. They divided the former Ottoman Empire into British-controlled zones, which was Iran, Jordan, Palestine, and French-controlled zones, Syria and Lebanon, without any regard for ethnic or religious boundaries. That's the key. So you had ethnic groups that were completely cut in half, or thirds, or fourths. Saudi Arabia is an example of this. And when the Ottomans suffered, Arab leaders were betrayed. The Lawrence of Arabia is an example, of the movie Lawrence of Arabia is an example of the betrayal of Arab leaders after the agreement went into effect. But with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, Mustafa Kemal Pasha led a national resistance movement, and from that we got the modern semi non-religious nation of Turkey. Now, who gave authority for Britain Great Britain and France to take over the Arab world? Nobody, except for the League of Nations. The League of Nations was the first attempt at a world government, or at least a world deliberative body. But it had no authority, had no power, had no military, had no economic strength. It was impotent from the beginning, and they rubber stamped what Britain and France had secretly already agreed to do. Another example of their inability was when the Japanese Empire went into China and other areas of Asia and conquered them. They said, "You're doing terrible things. You need to stop it." What did the Japanese do? They got up and walked out. This led to today and the problems that we see between the nations of the region. Now, this is all from Wikipedia. Most of Wikipedia is good. There's always nitpicking that's done on it. But it does give an overview of the history of what was happening in that timeline. So you see things like the Kurds who are split between Iran and Iraq and Turkey, fighting all three. You see various problems that Saudi Arabia has had with Shia Muslims. Now, there's two forms of modern Islam: Shia, which is mostly in Iran, which is what is practiced by uh, Khomeini and the rest of them, and Sunni, which is a form of Islam Saudi Arabia, UAE, and others follow. That doctrine goes back to the time after the death of Muhammad on who was going to rule the Muslim church. You've heard me say before, they're waiting for the 12th Imam to return. And unfortunately, their mindset is going to be, if anything we can do to disrupt the world enough to cause the 12th Imam to return is only good for us. There's no logic. There's no reason. There's only the vitriolic drive to do things to cause the 12th Imam to come back. Boy, they're going to be really disappointed. So that's our history for today. The Sykes-Picot Agreement between Great Britain and France that divvied up the Middle East after World War I. Military. Last time on the last podcast, I talked about just how large the U.S. military is compared to our NATO allies. Altogether, except maybe in aircraft and total number of people who could possibly be in the military, the United States versus the NATO countries, there is no comparison. But you also have to look at some of the subtleties. The Chinese have more ships than we do. Yes, absolutely. But most of their ships are on the same level as our Coast Guard cutters. Coastal ships, not white Navy ships. They can't go really and fight a battle 5,000 miles away, whereas the United States can. We have like 12 battle groups, I think, 9 to 12 battle groups. And we are still building new ships. We just relaunched our destroyer production based upon the destroyers we have at this time. In terms of training, in terms of equipment, the United States military pretty much is a combined arms military. What combined arms means is the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Army, the Coast Guard, and Space Force all work together as good as they can to complete their missions. Let's see what else. Let me go back into something else I've been working on since I retired, and that has been my spiritual and religious faith. I consider myself to be a Christian. I have been since I accepted Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior when I was 13 in Martin County. I was baptized in the faith, and even though I've not done or lived the way He would want me to live, I do consider myself a Christian. I do consider myself a child of God. And over the past 2 years, I've been trying to find a home for me to settle spiritually. And as I discussed before, I've visited very many churches here in Shelby County, and there's a lot of good people out there still. But the large churches, I don't feel comfortable in. And I feel sad at some of the small churches. They're dying. It's a shame because these group of people, as they age, know it. And they, I think, seem to feel powerless in trying to bring in others. And that's not their fault. The society changes. The church changes. It has from day one. I think I've found a home. I'm going to try to contribute as much as I can. I'm going to try to live more and put Jesus in control. Try to live the way I should live. I suggest you do that too. Look around, see what the Holy Spirit leads you to do, and do not be afraid to do it. Be bold in reconnecting with the church. So more about that later. Pop culture. So this is where I talk a little bit about some of the things I like to do. Another thing I've done since I've retired is strengthen my ties to a couple of organizations. Sons of the American Revolution is perhaps the predominant one. Not just the history of it, not just the service of it, not just doing the things that other older men like me like to do certain Saturdays and evenings. But there is a connection. As a direct descendant of someone who fought in the American Revolution, I feel it is my duty to help uphold and keep that knowledge and line going. Easier said than done on certain things. With our semi-quincentennial, yes, I did practice that with my wife, our 250th anniversary, our chapter's really busy. We do color guards, we do presentations to students and other groups. We participate with the Daughters of the American Revolution, VFW, historical societies, and it's cool to do. I enjoy it. I like putting on the costume, tramping around, carrying flags, firing small powder charges of black powder flintlocks. I don't get away with the sword that often. Maybe I will now that I'm taking on a leadership role with the Governor Isaac Shelby chapter here in Kentucky and interacting with other chapters. I'm also a member of the Big Sandy SAR, based out of Prestonsburg, Paintsville area in Kentucky. And that brings me joy. Another thing that brings me joy is being able to do some of the small things, learning, teaching, even working around the house, and being a nuisance to my wife who works from home. That's a secret joy, so don't tell her about it. I like traveling and visiting people, meeting new people, not necessarily making new friends, because to be honest, I don't like people that much. As the older I get, I find that I'm less tolerant of stupidity and boorish behavior. Comics. Well, Firestorm #2 came out. They're revamping the history of the Firestorm character, which was like 1976, 77. From a high school student to a college student, a slight change. But the basics are still there. Ronnie Raymond, uh, Professor Stein, Lorraine Riley, and others are being played into the mix. Um, I'm looking forward to it. Hold on, here comes a car goes through. Like I said, it's a beautiful day. The trees are completely green. The birds are singing. In fact, they start singing about 4:45 now, which bothers me a little bit. Various movies are coming out. Been doing various reading material. I do have a Kindle account and try to suck up and read all the free stuff. Everything from history to biographies to apocalyptic fiction. There's some really good alternate history stuff out there, and I enjoy reading quite a bit of it. So, let me see what we've got. About 15 minutes, now about 22 minutes. Let me go ahead and just kind of wrap it up. If you would, please like and possibly subscribe. I am going to try to do 2 of these a month. I will include things, my trip to Philadelphia that's upcoming. Maybe even a little bit on the, if it doesn't get rained out, the trip to the George Rogers Clark Memorial at Vincennes coming up this weekend. I will make sure I include things for the Kentucky History Day, where we're at the old Capitol in June. If you're in the area, come on by and say hi. If you're interested, try to get involved. Tomorrow is primary election day. I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for. That's none of your business, and it's my business. But do get out and vote. I know Robert Heinlein, a science fiction writer, said there may not be someone you want to vote for, but there's probably someone you want to vote against. Sad but true. And if you would, let me know what you think. If you have any questions or anything you disagree with, there's an email address and a comment section. I do look at those. And I'm just out here enjoying a breezy late spring day in the Ohio Valley. And I bid all of you good morning.